Welcome back to the Inside the FLX podcast, tackling issues, talking politics, and much more here in the FingerLakes1.com studio. I'm Josh Durso, and today's guest is a candidate for Seneca County District Attorney, former Fayette Town Judge Joe Sapio. Joins us to talk about his campaign, the Office of District Attorney, and much more. Joe, thanks a lot for coming in.
Josh, thanks for having me today.
So, obviously you're a candidate for Seneca County District Attorney, but beyond that, tell us a little bit about yourself, your personal background, and how you planted your roots here in Seneca County.
Fair enough. Born in La Crosse, Wisconsin in 1972. My folks ended up splitting up when I was about 4 years old. My mom moved back to Seneca County, New York, which is south of Buffalo. Did all of my high school down there. Did a couple years for my undergrad back at the University of Wisconsin at La Crosse. Mm-hmm. Took a couple years off, came back to Chautauqua County, finished up my undergrad in political science at Wisconsin, La Crosse in 96, came back to Chautauqua County. Throughout all that time I was in the Carpenters Union, working here and there. Got back actively involved in the Carpenters Union. Ended up going to law school at the Syracuse University College of Law in 1998. Graduated from there in 2001. Began my practice then in 2002 in Auburn, New York, while living in Liverpool in Onondaga County. Ended up meeting the future mother of my children in Auburn, who happened to be a Seneca County resident. And I moved here to the town of Fayette in 2006. So, of course, you have a pretty diverse background. I'm just kind of curious, what was that initial transition like, going from the carpentry, the construction background to the law, and how did that happen? 'Cause that's got to be really unique. Well, the most shocking thing was going and getting a pay cut from being a union carpenter to my first job as a lawyer. That was a little bit of a shock. And it was just a difference. Instead of working with your hands and your back and your legs all day, you worked with your mind a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And you had to learn how to craft your time a little bit and try to be in three places at once. That's still continues to be my greatest achievement.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, Fayette Town Judge for roughly 5.5 years. Talk to us a little bit about that experience and how that kind of tailored what your next move was going to be, obviously now running for Seneca County District Attorney.
2011, people in law enforcement, some ordinary citizens, some members of government, said Judge Dean was retiring from the Fayette Town Judge spot, and that I should run. I took them up on it and ran an election. I had a primary then in 2011, won the Republican primary, and then won the general election. And first day on the bench was December 1st of 2012, so that's when I first got in there. And the job brought a lot of extra time into my life. Mm-hmm. I was always answering the phone in the evenings, dedicated another part of my life to a different chapter, if you will. And it allowed me to see the law from a different perspective.
Right.
Instead of the defense attorney perspective, it was a side that we had to look at as being a neutral arbiter, if you will, mm-hmm. of the facts of the case.
Now, there's another interesting comparison, I guess, would be the defense attorney potentially next district attorney. How does that sort of comparison, or how do you rationalize that in your mind for the people who might, be saying, why would a defense attorney want to be district attorney?
As a defense attorney, and Two different things. I've been doing family court predominantly and criminal court predominantly since I was sworn in 2002. I took a liking to the criminal law immediately. When I was at the Syracuse University College of Law, I did a full year in the criminal law clinic, and it was just something that I gravitated to. So the first thing when I pick up a new file and I look at the paperwork, the first thing I look at is there's an issue here, 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 and here. And my job currently, whether it is retained counsel in Cayuga County, it's in the assigned counsel program. I do work here in Seneca County as a conflict public defender if they need counsel. But my first job is to say, wow, look at these gaps or holes in the case, and how can I push through them? What better district attorney can there be, at least in my opinion, is somebody that looks for the gaps and then says, how do we plug these up? How do we shore these holes and make sure that we can get some convictions?
It's an opportunity to present a more complete argument, essentially, is what you're saying.
I think so, Josh, yes.
So obviously you must have identified some issues that you thought were important enough to warrant the running in the first place. You're obviously going to be forcing a Republican primary and several other primaries as a result next month. Talk to us a little bit about where Seneca County is right now, in your estimation, from the prosecutorial side, and where you think it should be going, or what direction needs to take change here.
Well, Josh, I would submit to you right now it's broken. And I think the biggest breakdown right now is that of communication. District Attorney is the chief law enforcement officer of the county, and there has to be communication in order to help all parts of the criminal justice system. We have issues right now with our Criminal Justice Advisory Board. That's a state-mandated board that helps the sheriff and the other agencies talk about alternatives to incarceration, perhaps, pretrial release, things of that nature. And it's involved with the sheriff and the chiefs of police in both Seneca Falls and Waterloo, representative from county court and town court and probation and addictions and mental health. And the district attorney is also supposed to be there. So some of the records that I've foiled over the last several years, the district attorney has had a representative, I believe, 2 times. That I think is going back about 4 years. If you have all of these people together, it's the perfect opportunity for that dialogue, for the communication, to be able to talk not only about the alternatives to incarceration, but what we can do about the Stop DWI program, about the heroin epidemic, about what we can do to better put these policies into place on a countywide basis. And it just seems that the absence from the Office of District Attorney is not doing anyone any favors.
Now, you just mentioned something that I do want to get your opinion on, obviously, the heroin epidemic. Something that no matter what elected office you're holding seems like people are thinking about. You have to be thinking about.
Absolutely.
Obviously, as a former judge, I'm sure you had plenty of exposure to it on that side. Probably also as a defense attorney at some point. Just what is your overall feeling on where things stand, and is the community moving in the right direction, or is it something that needs to kind of change in the coming years?
Any work, I think, is good work, but there has to be more of it. Right. There has to be more education. And I think there has to be more of a message sent to those who are bringing the drugs into the community. And it's always a fine line between, there are some addicts who have to sell to support their own habit. And then I think there are strictly those predatory type of dealers that are bringing the product into our county. The pushers of this poison, I think, have to be dealt with severely. And as a defense attorney, some of the deals seem like gifts.
Right. Now, it seems like what you're saying is there needs to be more of an effort to stop it before it comes in or as it's coming in, rather than just stopping it once it's here and once it's already changing hands between this person and that person within Seneca County. Because obviously it's not all coming from here in Seneca County. It's coming from outside of the area. Is that something that you feel the DA's office should be pushing more towards regional cooperation, that kind of thing, to try and end this problem across the board?
It's never going to end. Right. With that being said, both to Sheriff Stenberg and to now Sheriff Luce, they've both worked on creating a top-notch drug task force that is really trying to do just that, try to stop it before it gets to us. There has to be cooperation then with the district attorney's office, and there has to be a message to those that are caught that you're going to prison. And I think that message is lacking right now.
Now, obviously, it's been a fairly active campaign thus far. Just give us an update on the petitions that were filed and where you stand and what lines voters will see you on this fall, heading into what will be a very busy election season.
Sure. Well, starting with the working families petition, there was a lawsuit brought by the incumbent. There was testimony taken by Judge Taylor out of Monroe County Supreme Court just this last Monday. I think to a T, the 8 signatures that were gathered on the working families line all came in. Maybe it was 7 or 8, so excuse me if I misquote the 7 or 8, came in and gave testimony that they all did sign the petition. However, none of them were administered the notarial oath. Do you swear who you are, who you say you are, basically? And everything contained in this petition is true. Due to that technicality, the judge sustained the incumbent's petition, and that line was closed. So we would not have the opportunity to have somebody write in my name or anybody else's on the working families line. With that being said, the Republican line, I'm on there for the Republican primary, endorsed by the Conservative and Independents, and that's with the CE, Independence Party. And there have been enough Democrat signatures that have been gathered, not contested, and submitted to the Board of Elections. So the Democrats also have a voice on September 12th to hopefully write in Joe Sapio.
Now, obviously, you've talked a little bit about how this process has played out for you, but I'm curious because there have been discussions and conversations behind the scenes and throughout the community about where the money is coming from for your campaign, and I would like to give you the opportunity to just clear the air once and for all, because you've even gone as far as begun posting to social media the filings that show exactly where the money is coming from. It has to be frustrating.
If this wasn't so important, it would be comical, the things that are said. So far, this seems like I'm trying to address the issues, talk about the topics, and met with a person 2 days ago, and it was related to this person when somebody had asked to put a different sign up in his yard, and that person related that, I signed Joe Sapio's Republican petition. Well, word around the street is Joe Sapio's taking dump money. So I wanted to set the record straight, and we had a nice post about that. First and foremost, campaign contributions are listed on the Board of Elections website, and all of my campaign contributions are listed there. Friends I've went to law school, people that are supporting me in this campaign. And Josh, there are three polarizing things in this county. There's the reservation, there is the casino, and there's the dump. And I haven't taken money from any one of those three entities one way or the other, because frankly, those are legislative issues, and the office of the district attorney is hopefully about speaking the truth,
Right.
number one, and number two, about prosecuting the laws that are there, not creating policy.
Right. Now, obviously, you have some pretty deep roots in the southern end of the county, of course. Judge in Fayette. That's sort of that, you're walking that line where more people may know you from the southern end of the county than those who might know you from the northern end of the county. How do you go about now, between now and, well, what would be the next month, connecting the two? Because there is you have to have the support of the northern end of the county. It's just kind of a reality given the political and residential makeup of Seneca County. So how are you going to go about connecting that between the two?
My biggest connection, I think, was when I won the election for Fayette Town Judge in 2011. Then Judge Mahoney, may she rest in peace, was kind of my first mentor. And I first met Judge Mahoney when she was a clerk for Judge McConnell in Seneca Falls Town Court when I first started practicing. And she brought me in. She gave me kind of a behind-the-scenes look at the court. Not so much what you do on the bench. I think I was knowledgeable enough in the law for that part, but the behind-the-scenes thing that took a learning curve. How to get your robe, how to get your books, how to do this, what reports you have to file, accounts, things of that nature. And she was very ill her last 2 years on the bench, which were 12 and 13, and those were my first two. And I think one of the things that at least law enforcement and people within the system know, and maybe not the general public, is I would do a lot of arraignments for the Seneca Falls Police Department because Judge Mahoney just wasn't available to. I was always on call, and I committed myself not only to those people in Fayette, but also to those people in Seneca Falls that needed an outside judge to help them out. Committed myself to the people of both the town and village of Waterloo when those judges had to work or were in school or things of that nature. I've done arraignments for the whole county. I've done arraignments for family court. I was kind of a go-to, and I know that's one small area when you're talking about the criminal justice system of people that I think kind of understood that I was giving back to not only the town of Fayette, but all points in between.
Now, if you were going to identify what the big difference is between yourself and current district attorney Barry Porsche, what would that difference be?
I would have to say trials, and I would have to say courtroom experience. The Republican meeting, I was critiqued, if you will, by the incumbent about my appellate work, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it was said, what a great appellate record that the incumbent has. Well, in honesty, Josh, that's the courts, that's the county court's appellate record.
Mm-hmm.
The district attorney is tasked, if you will, to defend the court record about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as a defense attorney, I've probably had, somewhere in the realm of 30 to 40 or so trials, felony trials, in the 16 years or so I've been practicing. 15 years. And I'm putting my acquittal rate at about 70 to 75%, if not higher. That might be a low ball. When I've done some of my research over the trials, over the last 8 years held by this office, we're talking felony jury trials. I looked at the incumbent's numbers for trials that he has prosecuted himself, and I counted 14, 5 of which resulted in acquittals, 2 of which resulted in only misdemeanor convictions, mm-hmm. and 2 of which only resulted in violation level convictions. Mm-hmm. So 9 out of 14 resulted in something other than a felony conviction, and my basic math says that's about 36%.
Right.
We number one, we need a higher conviction rate at trial than that, and number two, stepping into the world of appeals is simply a focus of paperwork. And 8 years ago, the incumbent, I don't think had ever done a felony jury trial, stepping into a job that I believe is mostly focused in the courtroom.
Right. Now, of course, there have been a couple higher profile cases, the Carlson case and then the Bardo case for the district attorney. How, as you watched these play out, and how did you feel they were handled appropriately, handled well? Were there opportunities missed by Seneca County? What was kind of your take on that?
I guess I don't know what you mean by opportunities missed by Seneca County.
Well, were those cases, because these are 2 cases, as an example, that throughout this campaign will be gold standards for the current district attorney. These will be cases that he will most likely look back at and say, "See, I have done well, Seneca County." Obviously, you probably don't feel that way, or I'm assuming at some point you've critiqued the sort of daily work that goes into this. Can you translate any of that to the voters who might be wondering, how would you have handled these differently? Or would you have handled the same way?
Well, I guess I'm not here to second guess anybody, but again, as the chief law enforcement officer, if you have a conviction, you have to give the credit solely to the law enforcement agencies that have been investigating the cases and have laid the case before you. Mm-hmm. And I think comparatively, if you lose a case as a district attorney, I think the buck has to stop with the office of the district attorney. Mm-hmm. I don't think that there's any other way to say it, but in those 2 cases that you're mentioning, law enforcement did a great job. Mm-hmm.
Now, if voters are kind of curious about you, do you have any events or anything like that coming up where people can meet you, talk to you, sort of figure out what you're all about, that kind of thing?
Sure. Today's August 10th. 2 days from now, I believe it's 9 to 12, Saturday morning, August 12th, at the Perro's Auto Parts in downtown Waterloo on Main Street. We're having an event called Shred It and Pet It. Mm-hmm. And the shredding part is that there is going to be a mobile shredding machine, and you can come and bring taxes, unwanted documents, old lawsuit papers, anything of that nature that you want to shred that might have your personal information on it, and you can go ahead and shred that. I'll be there to talk about any issues with identity theft or anything that you may have. In conjunction with that, the Beverly Animal Shelter is also going to be there. They're going to have a couple, I believe, animals there, possibly for adoption or looking to find a home. And we would just ask that you bring, if you stop in, bring a donation for Dalen and the animals at the Beverly Animal Shelter.
Very cool.
In addition to that, 2 weeks from tonight, August 24th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Seneca Falls Community Center, we're going to have a Meet the Candidate evening. I'll be there for 2 hours to ask any questions that anybody may have.
Awesome. Now, the last question before I get you out of here.
Yes.
One word to describe Joe Sapio. If there is just one word to describe him, what is that one word?
My father is 83 years old, and he hates limitations. He hates the word or. He hates the word but. So he would love for me to say, I'm this, and I'm this, and I'm this, and. Mm-hmm. Dedicated. And I think the dedication starts with my family, starts with my children, my 8-year-old boy, my 17-year-old daughter. It starts with the dedication to make time. This has been just finished up my 3rd year coaching baseball for Seneca Falls Little League. Mm-hmm. It's dedication to when I was on a construction crew with the Carpenters Union. Still pay my dues every year, and endorsed by the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America, by the way. Quick plug. But I was dedicated to the crew. I was dedicated to the town of Fayette and the court system. I was dedicated to the county as far as my availability for law enforcement, and I'm going to be dedicated to this job.
That's great. Well, we really appreciate you coming in, and definitely I'm going to encourage everyone to go out and check out the meet and greet and everything else that you have going on.
All right. Thank you so much, Josh.
That's going to do it for us today. I'd again like to thank Joe for stopping by and encourage everyone to check out the public meet and greet that will be taking place later this month. Inside the FLX airs Sundays at 7 p.m. on Spectrum Channel 12 and is available on iTunes, Stitcher, and the FingerLakes1.com app. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.